Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Poetry Project. I'm Kay Gabriel. I work here at the project. Thank you so much for coming to tonight's program, Writing Against Rent. We have a very full room tonight. If you need a seat, please ask for one. If you are asked, please oblige. Bathrooms are upstairs. Smoking is on the curb. And if you need an accessible restroom, please let me or one of my colleagues know. We can open the sanctuary. For that crowd standing in the doorway, if y'all want to come in and just sit in this hallway right here, I do mean all of you who are looking away and behind you. If you all just want to sit up here, there's some seating up here, seating. We'll make do. The current issue of the Poetry Project newsletter is on your chairs, or if you don't have a chair, it's on the admissions desk. It feels relevant to tonight's program because everything does, so please take one home with you. Thank you to our techs, Noah and James, to Gary, our videographer, to my colleagues who are here tonight, Maren, Will, and Heather, to our volunteers, to Tracy Rosenthal, who co-wrote the book that we are in part celebrating tonight, to our readers, who I'll name in a moment, and once again to all of you. As I said, tonight is part of a celebration of an urgent and necessary handbook of class struggle, Abolish Rent, How Tenants Can End the Housing Crisis, by Tracy Rosenthal and Leonardo Vilches, who's not here tonight. And it's also a celebration and an exploration of the cultural front against rent. Tonight's readers in this order are Tracy Rosenthal, Nora Treatbaby, Sarah Schulman, Lena Pervez Afridi, the Crown Heights Tenants Union, Mohammed Zenia, Siddiq Fafana, Canal Street Research, Kalim Hawa, and Maya Martinez. Everybody is going to read for about 5 minutes, except Tracy, who can 7. 5. Tracy can diva out on the mic. Abolish Rent is now in its second printing, and that is another reason to celebrate. As this round of nightmare descends on us, like everyone else here, I am looking with curiosity and urgency at the organizations and organizing methods that people can use and are already using to develop the power to change their conditions. Based on their experiences in the LA Tenants Union, Tracy Rosenthal and Leo Vilches persuasively demonstrate the capacity of organized tenants to fight back against the obscenely wealthy and fatally powerful class fractions who own our housing, strip mine our wages, target our neighborhoods for redevelopment, and frame all of the above under the insulting euphemism of the housing crisis. As the authors write, housing is not in crisis, tenants are. And tenants, therefore, can develop the knowledge, the relationships, and the infrastructure to end the crisis and not just tinker at its edges. This book could not have arrived soon enough, and we are so fortunate that we all get to learn from it. So the readers are going to introduce each other. Your names and bios are up here, so you can just read who's next. I am not going to come back to the podium, theoretically. Tracy is going to read first. Once again, Tracy Rosenthal is a writer and co-founder of the LA Tenants Union and the author of Abolish Rent. It is so cool to call them a friend and a comrade, and I'm thrilled to welcome them to the Poetry Project.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And thank you especially to the readers for being here. As Kay said, there are books for sale, but I also want to encourage everyone to please donate to CHTU, which you can do at that table over there. And you can also pick up a copy of the new issue of the New York War Crimes and buy a poster to support that work. It's getting to the point where we're paying them to kill us. This is how a tenant in East New York once described paying rent to live in an apartment so moldy that mushrooms grew from her walls and it inflicted permanent damage on her lungs. And don't pay your rent. This is the third to last line of my favorite Bernadette Mayer poem, Walking Like a Robin. Favorite basically because it is there. When I thought about this event, I thought about these two lines and the many ways we articulate rent to each other. Tonight's readers represent at least 3 boroughs. They work in at least 4 genres. They are organizers who write, writers who organize, and writers whose work has helped me survive our rented world. In the same poem, Mayer tells us, we should give everybody everything, and I hope everyone leaves with something you can return to. So I'm gonna read something that I just started working on, which is the story of my own rent strike. And I'd like everyone to give a warm welcome to the 3 members of my tenant association who are here. It really means the world that you're here. And I think it was Elizabeth who started referring to the seasons of our organizing as if, seasons of a TV show. So now it's season 4, and we've been on rent strike for 2.5 years. But I'm gonna read, I guess, from the pilot. And the show and the piece, I think, will be called Professional Tenant. Maybe the worst thing about cockroaches is what they do to your peripheral vision. The nagging, hallucinatory vigilance that rushes towards specks of dust, a passing shadow. A strand of hair would cross my eyes and I'd spasm, shatter the mug, occasionally scream. What need did I have for exaggerating the scope of the problem? They were everywhere. I'd turn on the bathroom light, map my proximity, count the creatures, and decide to kill or cower. I mean everywhere. The internet said they were German. The apartment was already an embarrassment. The claim that I was only visiting New York was significantly impaired by the fact that I'd signed a lease. I was supposed to know better than to choose a place with market rate rent. What kind of tenant organizer abandons their union and moves 3,000 miles away? What kind of person severs the tether of their orbit to another and then resents floating in space? What kind of New Yorker relies on a blue dot to get around Brooklyn? September sun on my face on a stoop on the Sesame Street across from where I decided I must live, I called the broker. I had to be the first to see it. It didn't matter that the kitchen was in the hallway. If the Upper East Side has the classic 6, Bed-Stuy has the classic 2x2. A garden and a street view, variably preserved fireplaces, and invariably 12-foot ceilings. This one would be mine. Some things are meaningful and other things are not. The roaches meant that I had made a mistake. The landlord wouldn't respond to my complaints and the super left me on red. I decided to introduce myself to my neighbors and invite them to go in on a fumigation. We found only one company that would treat the building without the landlord's permission, Big Tony's Pest Control. He blasted each apartment. He showed no fear. Afterwards, he told us that the appliances on the 2nd floor were infested beyond redemption. When I look back at our messages now, I see that the word infested has auto-corrected to the word invested. You can reach Big Tony at 718-600-0970. The neighbors and I sent in the next month's rent, deducting the cost of Tony's work, with a letter that said weekly services would be required for as long as the 2nd floor appliances remained. A few days later, the super moved them to the curb. This was January. I no longer had roaches, but I also didn't have heat. I learned a lot of things very quickly, mostly that I was an idiot. I should have known that the hallway kitchen meant my building was an SRO, and according to the Department of Buildings, it was. I should have known that 6 total apartments meant my building qualified for rent stabilization, and the Department of Housing had receipts. I requested my rent history, and I read it like a horoscope. In 2001, a tenant paid $500 to live in my apartment. In 2004, another Tracy lived here. Really, what do you think it means? But after 2012, the records went blank. I Googled the list of past residents and I called them all. One of them more or less told me to fuck myself. One decided to chat. He knew nothing about stabilization but was happy to reminisce about staring at the church steeple from his bed and the scaling ivy from his desk, and up at the clouds through the skylight from the bath. Wait, what skylight? I had assumed the pop-out square in the bathroom ceiling was just a missing vent. When we hung up, I climbed the ladder up to the roof and discovered the asphalt roofed over where the skylight once was. I laid down next to the evidence. I did not know what my rent history literally or legally meant, but I was looking for a sign. I started February back in LA where I told no one I'd even left. On the first of the month, citing lack of heat, I took $500 off the rent. That day, I got a text from the landlord. Please, spelled PLS, leave the unit at the end of the month. My place is not good enough for you. Good luck, 2 exclamation points. I texted, you must know that if you want to evict me, you have to take me to court. He texted, unfortunately, you do not make the decision in my building. I have no intent on continuing this toxic relationship. 3 exclamation points. I'm finished with this. 5 exclamation points. I texted, you must know that if you want to evict me, you have to take me to court. His number, by the way, is 917-257-0374. I admit I was mostly thinking about being a plane ride away from my clothes. I could find another apartment, but how could I find another black and white Virgin and Child JPG mesh? I FaceTimed a friend on an assignment to extract the irreplaceables. Does it spark joy, he asked, pulling each item out of my closet. That was the first time it occurred to me I was my landlord's cockroach. According to Property Hustlers, a real estate YouTube with almost 10,000 subscribers, a professional tenant is to landlords what the boogeyman is to children. Someone who moves into an apartment with the explicit intention to not pay rent. NV Property Management warns of, quote, lost rental income and a laundry list of headaches. An advice column called Live Off Rents accuses them of being opportunists. Class struggle is basically an argument about which one of us is the parasite. I could afford to pay the whole rent. I simply did not want to. Now, I'd like you all to please take out your phones, open a text window. I mean it, do it. Please take out your phones, open a text window, and type in this number. It's 646-783-0627. And you text the words rent history. It will tell you what to do next. Thank you. And thank you all for coming again. Our next reader, please welcome Nora Treatbaby. Nora Treatbaby is a writer based in New York. She does not spend her time.
What's up, everybody? Hella of you. Y'all must hate rant as fuck. Okay. I just wrote this kind of like last night, so we'll see. No edits, whatever. But I'm pretty familiar with the concept of rent. Thank you. Maybe not that, though. Cool. Okay. Rent. An unduly revolting metronome that marks our time, marks our life. Every month I suspend doing all the things that give my existence meaning in order to work so that I can live. Days go by where I don't write, I don't think, I don't move my body according to its own purpose. Days go by where I don't read and I don't see somebody who loves me. Because I'm spending my time acquiescing to the ultra threat of destitution and economic limit, I let days go by without eating near a familiar body. Days where I'm too tired to fuck, days where I'm too deprived of the normal rhythms of loss and acceptance because I'm trying to afford a place to sleep. Everything about my past everything about my past that I regret led to something beautiful, but I cannot transcend the world completely, so I regret living through this time of private property. It is a slice of the spinning earth that is in my landlord's possession. Dude probably lives less than 3 miles from me, takes his family to Macy and balls out on my money, toes in the fucking sand, racking up miles, first class, shopping at Sunglass Hut in Rome. We live in a time of theft, the world ordered according to it. They will tell you that ownership is a liberty and that all this violence is necessary for its guarantee. But in my estimation, having paid so much of my money to people I have met once to let me use their house, I think it is my desperation that is guaranteed. Sometimes I just feel bafflement at this arrangement. Even I struggle at times to comprehend and refute all the abstractions materialized in the labor process, cannot eradicate value from the world I touch, cannot think of my time as something possessing a dimension beyond money or pleasure. But when I pay my rent, I'm really like, what the fuck? This is crazy. Yesterday, the sun was yoked out all over Brooklyn. It was the first of the month. Millions of people had just lost everything. I'm retreating into a sense of acceptance. I should be wigging the fuck with all these people demanding a life. I have to watch mine slowly extinguish in the bank account of a dickhead. Squatted the entirety of Trump's first term and some of the freest years of my life. A chore wheel with people with ridiculous names is better than this shit. It was the only way I could have... I literally lived with someone named Rotten Milk, so it's like, if you know, you know. For sure. It was the only way I could afford to not work and smoke cocaine, but in retrospect, I was directing my life towards its own pain and its own arc of perfection. It had its own velocity and was not contorted to the pleasures of vampires. I feel that it is late, societally. Now you also have to rent Adobe, subscription-based model for house, and soon for every stupid fucking thing in the world. Never wanted to know what B2B SaaS meant. I am fucking wigging, because every time I step onto the train, I see a man enveloped in an unbelievable misery, wearing the squalid warning of what will happen to any of us if we do not fall in line. The destitution you see is not an abstraction. It is the materialization of these relations. It is the full force of history wrecking someone on the C train. The social contract rigged. Locke and Ricardo's theories of compensation and authority spraying themselves all over the city's increasingly bad vibe. I cannot square beauty with the way things are. That both exist is crazy. The lush unfolding of sex, the drama of change, the sky being everywhere, the earth and its freaks, and rent. I'm not trying to sound romantic, I just can't help but think of this cosmically, considering my single life and the time I have is bound up with this problem. Okay, fine. When we die, we will have had to work. I would have liked to kept my money for my people. I would have liked to spent on something that I can have. Like everything, it's getting worse. My adult life began when they fucked up the world to sell clapboard McMansions and repackage the debt to make the fastest and stupidest buck of all time. Every macroeconomic development since then has reinvested the same institutions that nearly brought the world to its knees with even more free-ranging power to accumulate as much wealth as possible and limit the individual from accessing the so-called privileges of ownership. A grid overlaying the entire earth. Accelerating landlordization, Fordism gone, politics still defined by a 25-year post-war period of economic expansion and America's insistence on hallucinating through its decline. Social planning and commercial demand is captured by predatory financial instruments or private equity instantly. I need rich parents immediately. Probably too late for that. Housing stock degrading in quality because private equity consolidates local contractors into massive construction conglomerates who save money buying $40 million of drywall at a time. I could get into it because as a carpenter, I've built several houses I could never afford, but basically business consultants and upper management MBA types are guaranteeing the next generation of homes that you will never be able to afford, look like shit, and work like shit. Monotonous, no swag, and no style. This is just the screed of a desperate person held in place like millions of you. In a life I cannot manage, in a declining country, our money evaporating into the form of our most fundamental need, our lives evaporating into the vulnerability of a physical body, needing roof overhead, sink with water, place of familiar comforts, a safe space to freak the fuck out. I don't know what to do. It's no longer enough to breathe through it. The demand is getting clearer. The hope is waning, the compromise is ending, the aggression expanding, the withholding emerging, a new accelerating day. Thank you. Sarah Schulman is the author of many books, including Let the Record Show, A Political History of ACT UP New York, and Conflict is Not Abuse. Her next book, The Fantasy and Necessity of Solidarity, will be out April 22nd. Please welcome Sarah.
Thank you. I'm going to read from my novel, The Cosmopolitans. Greenwich Village, 1958. The next morning, Earl left the house at 4:30. He hadn't had to be at work until 7 for a couple of years, but had been leaving at 4:30 for so long that it was impossible to stay in an empty bed for another hour. He liked starting out in the dark, preferring the empty streets as he walked west, past all the sleepers, the dreamers. Every night, Earl had the same kind of dream. He dreamed that his dreams had come true. Every night, someone he loved and missed terribly, who had been cruel for no reason, would come to him and be kind. It could be Anthony or his mother or his sister or Leon or any of the men in between. In the dream, they would just forget about it and come hold him, have fun together. Then he would wake up and say a few things out loud. As part of that half waking, he would say, "Help." And he would say, "I am so lonely." And sometimes he would say, "I hate my life." At that point, stepping out into the dark town was something to look forward to, something motivating. By the time he'd made it far west, the other guys would start to appear, converging from uptown Brooklyn, the Lower East Side. They'd all started out alone and ended up together. Earl would shoulder his way into the crowded 24-hour Greasy Spoon on Gansevoort Street, filled with unwashed men at the counter drinking coffee, eating steamy bowls of hot oatmeal and smoking, shoulders hunched, black, Spanish, and white. It was gorgeous, the way they'd talk out of the sides of their mouths, gesture with their cigarettes, or ruminate deep into those cups. Everyone came to work dirty and waited until the end of the shift to shower and soap up. They'd wash together and go home sparkling clean in the evening, but start off dirty in the morning. They had their ways, these guys. Pans of greasy eggs, pans of fried potatoes dripping in grease, tired men with big hands and lives of filth. Everyone else was in bed, but they were already dirty. Earl walked east and a little south, and soon he was on Bleecker and Carmine, where the village Italians had their main drag, rabbits hanging in the butcher's window with fur still decorating their ankles. He kept going down Bleecker past the funeral homes and that new leather shop where the beatnik kids were buying sandals. They love them sandals. He didn't quite get it. What was so happening about sandals? On both sides of the street, tired, dirty Italian men trudged home from construction jobs. They lived on Mulberry, Sullivan, and McDougal. Bleecker had a lot of cafes those days. Some were still Italian, but some were for the poets. Or they switched depending on the time of night, but the side streets belonged to the working people. Grandfathers, fathers, uncles, all hired on the same site. Earl never had dust on his shoes at the end of the day. That was a sign of pride. But these slum kings stomped home dirty and presided at rickety kitchen tables, grit still under their nails. By the time he got to Sullivan, he'd seen a lot and had taken in a couple of lessons. The street kids were playing in the wading pool at the Children's Aid Society. Most of them had never seen a lake. Most of them had never worn a bathing suit, but they didn't know and they didn't care. They could still have fun and cool off. That was his fate somehow, Earl. To go out alone, sidle up to someone at a bar or on a bench by a loading dock and try to strike up a relationship. They'd talk for a while, and then the other would be on his way. Earl, missing him already, while for the one he trapped into a chat, it was a throwaway, unless they were both up for sex, and then it would be behind a building, or if he got lucky in one of their apartments for a few hours that he could never get to stretch into a night. He liked to be in bed with a man, but most of them shied away. Whenever Earl would see some potential, he'd clean his place, change the sheets, set up the 2 pillows in clean cases. He'd have 4 bottles of beer in the Frigidaire, a pack of smokes, whatever a fellow might need. But it would be years in between the nights anyone else climbed between those sheets. He'd go the whole 24 hours without interchanging with another soul for real. Being lonely, it's a bad habit like dope. Don't start or it'll ruin your life. That's the advice Earl would have offered if he'd ever had the opportunity. Don't make loneliness work for you. Okay, thank you. I screwed up. Lena Pervez Afridi is a writer and researcher from Queens, New York. They are an editor for Pinko, a magazine for thinking gay communism.
Thank you. I'm going to read 2 short pieces that are actually in the newsletter that you're sitting on, which I was told is a flex, but it's, whatever. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so we went from 1958 New York we're going to go to 2007. Taffy Place. Passing by Taffy Place, where that tiny basement gay bar used to be with the Hasidic bartenders, where all my friends used to be when all my friends were still here. This block always makes me think of New Year's Eve 2008 or maybe 2007, right when the rezoning happened, when I went to a dinner party in the Lower East Side. Someone I knew in college was having an affair with the man who lived there, a Danish guy with watery eyes in a 2-story apartment in Manhattan. I think he was some kind of therapist. I had not known it was a dinner party and hadn't brought anything besides a 6-pack, but no one was eating anything anyway, just doing lines of Coke and cocktail dresses. I had nothing to eat and nothing to say and a dumpy sweatshirt on, so I walked between the rooftop looking over Allen Street, where I could see the info shop where I had a Saturday shift, and the vegan Chinese restaurant next door that wasn't very good, but where the owner always gave me extra dumplings because I stopped by so often. The restaurant shared a basement with the info shop, and there were rats in it. I knew because I made a lot of noise as I descended down the rickety steps to get the extra toilet paper we stored down there, trying to make sure they got out of my way. I walked between that rooftop view and the philandering Danish husband's children's bedroom and sat on their tiny back-breaking Scandinavian chairs tracing the contours of their kid art with my eyes until mercifully someone in the apartment downstairs knocked a candle over and the building caught on fire. This is a true story, by the way. I had been leaning over the edge of the roof, watching my breath and the dancing light of the standstill traffic below when a firefighter slammed a ladder on the side of the building and made his way up, screaming that we all needed to get the fuck out right now. I had never seen a firefighter so close up, and his helmet looked like it was heavy enough to snap his neck in half. So I left the terrible dinner party and got on the F train to the G train and walked down this block to the gay bar. It took me an hour, and in the course of that hour, midnight came and went while I was slumped onto the orange plastic seats like I was every other day. At the gay bar, I felt cute in my sweatshirt. Someone I didn't know, but who knew someone I knew, had gotten into a fight with her girlfriend and wandered away. She called one of us drunk, said she was across the street at a party, and it was really fun. The DJ was really good. So we went across the street, but the building we found was only half built. The block was being demolished house by house, and new construction was replacing rent-stabilized units, but no one wanted to live on Taffy Place except the people who had always lived on Taffy Place and could no longer. The new building was still half empty, and the front door was propped open with a cinder block. A dead rat decomposed in the entryway, bloated from the poison that was visible in the corners of the hall. There used to be cat colonies all over New York that kept the rat population just barely at bay, reaching a delicate equilibrium. When new construction went up, the cats were displaced and the rats took over, mating in the shadows and fist-fighting each other on garbage cans outside first-floor windows. 15 years since that initial rezoning in 2007, the rat population increased by 50% across New York City. I used to work with the guy who figured out the rat census, writing reports in a windowless office off of Herald Square, while he seized time back from our employer and spent it crunching rodent numbers. I trust his methodology, but there's also anecdotal evidence. In a New York Post article, a Harlem resident reports that the rats have overtaken her neighborhood. We've had rats the size of Crocs on the sidewalk, an average size 8 just running up and down the street. Also a real quote. But before it all got worse, we stepped over the half-melted rat and climbed the half-lit stairs, opened the doors to vacant apartments without electricity, tried out each bathroom, peed in the toilets, and jiggled the handles and ran the showers, pretending we lived there. We wandered through the dark halls until we reached a door where we could hear a house party dying down. A kid about our age answered the door. The front of his shirt was wet. "Have you seen this girl?" we asked. "She looks like this." We described her face or the memory of her face. I looked past him. There was music, but no DJ, just a tinny din escaping from laptop speakers. The person at the door was shaking his head, but someone else pushed past and yanked him inside from the entryway. "Come get your friend," he said. "She just walked in here, got in my bed, and puked in it." "Who is she?" No, none of us knew her name, but I still think of her every time I walk down the street. Okay, so the next one is called Another New York. This is part of a series. Another New York. In the newspaper, I read lamentations about a New York that has disappeared. This is an article and a physical copy of the newspaper, and I hear those have disappeared too. I'm sitting in my bedroom where I like to perch on the windowsill and watch the birds in the tree outside, stare at the daylight catch the raindrops on the slick leaves, and trace their journey down the lines of the midribs and lateral veins. I sit here for hours and empty my brain when I have the hours to spare and say their colors aloud to myself as they spin and dance their way to the sidewalk to end their short lives stuck to the bottom of a shoe with gum or dog shit. I like to stay in this very spot and smell the smell of cigarettes being smoked on the front stoop of my building. I love the smell of someone smoking cigarettes outside while I am inside. It makes me feel close to them without actually having to be close to them, but I hear that cigarettes are disappearing too. Sometimes the curtains stir in the wind and close themselves in on me, and I am momentarily draped in fabric, and I like to feel it on my face for a second. As a child, I often hid from everyone and everything: teachers, parents, my few friends, my many bullies, my incorrect desires, the mailman, the lunch lady, the grinding of my growing bones, sometimes even no one. For a moment, I remember that feeling of existing and not, seeing without being seen. I keep the fabric over my face and listen to my neighbors fighting on their way in, the clang of the poorly constructed tin wheelchair ramp trembling under the weight of stomping footsteps. The front door slammed, and I'm confident that it was just a punctuation in another of their many frequent arguments. Over time, I have learned to tell the difference between an angry slam like this one and the regular everyday bang the front door makes anytime anyone enters or leaves. Its winding hinges declaring the ache of company coming and going. I go back to my looking and watch the cars pass by, one making a sharp turn, getting stuck at a red light, and blocking a full bus from making its way to what I know is its final stop. It beeps and beeps and beeps in indignation, and the car behind it beeps and beeps in impatience, and the car that's stuck at the light beeps and beeps in defense, until all I can hear is the horns ringing in my ears. I don't mind, though, because I fall asleep to this sound most nights. They really should put another stop sign there. At night, I hear the horn of the bus and the sound of my neighbor in the building across the courtyard screaming. I have never seen him, but I hear him every night at 12 a.m. He screams and yelps, and I can tell he is not afraid. He is just releasing something I know, but could not possibly vocalize. Maybe about how all our rents were going up, or how our shared slumlord landlord would say he was fixing the black mold in the bathroom, but would just paint over it, when he bothered to respond at all. Once in a while, some weary person trying to get sleep before or after a long shift would yell at him out the window to shut up, but he would just yelp back in response, and besides, everyone had grown accustomed to him, our neighbor, him and his familiar screams. Maybe he's battling ceaseless stomach cramps after drinking some expired milk from our grocery store, which was always selling expired things, and really it was your fault if you bought them without looking if you lived here long enough. Or maybe he was remembering something embarrassing he had done on the dance floor of the secret gay bar in the back of what was once a Chinese restaurant. But I feel like I would have seen him there, past the thick cigarette smoke that always made me think that this was the place where I would die, in a fire, in a mirror-paneled room in the back of a crowded, abandoned Chinese restaurant. I would have seen him there, and we would have locked eyes, and I would have immediately known he was a screamer, and I'd tell him, I fall asleep to you every night. One night I got in bed early and I woke up with a start a little after 12:30. I couldn't get back to sleep, so I went to my perch and wondered why I was awake, struggling to reach back into my psyche and unearth whatever nightmare had woken me in the morning. I realized the night had been silent. I moved the next year. That's it. Thank you. Up next, the Crown Heights Tenants Union. Yes? Yeah. The Palestine Solidarity Working Group of the Crown Heights Tenant Union organizes against real estate companies with financial ties to Israel, connecting the struggle for Palestinian liberation with the struggle for our homes and neighborhoods. Please welcome the Crown Heights Tenants Union.
Hello. Good evening. Who here's in the Crown Heights Tenants Union? Yeah, that's right. There are like 5 or 6 of my fellow comrades in the working group here tonight as well, so shout out to you all, I love you all. 2,431 miles is the distance between Brooklyn and Gaza. In many ways, the Zionist occupation of Palestine and the gentrification of Crown Heights seem worlds apart. But scratch beneath the surface, and the material connections that unite our struggles come into devastating plain sight. In 1995, Joel Wiener, CEO of Pinnacle Group, began purchasing apartment buildings. He set his sights on working-class, predominantly black and immigrant neighborhoods that had been subject to decades of state abandonment and capital divestment: Harlem, Washington Heights, Crown Heights, the South Bronx. Pinnacle Group's business strategy employs the classic slumlord playbook. They purchase rent-stabilized buildings on the cheap and intentionally allow them to fall into disrepair. Why? A rent-regulated building can lose its status in New York if it's demolished or has undergone substantial rehabilitation. The road to destabilization is paved with physical neglect. By 2017, Wiener had hoarded over 9,000 units across New York City. That same year, the CEO's net worth soared above $1 billion. How was this astronomical accumulation of wealth possible? For the answer to that question, we have to turn to the Zionist occupation of Palestine. Construction at this scale, 9,000 units, typically requires large institutional creditors. Pinnacle Group has raised more than $500 million on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange by issuing bonds. That makes it the largest American borrower on the Israeli bond market. In presentations, the company boasts about being able to pay back its loans with interest by converting rent-stabilized homes across New York City into condos. Gentrification is no accident, but their business strategy: displace and replace the poor for profit, as our comrades, as that comrade in the LA Tenants Union helpfully defines it. What this means is that in occupied Palestine, investors are counting on the displacement of tenants in Crown Heights. Rent circulates back to the Zionist occupation in the form of interest. The spoils of settler colonialism there are siphoned into displacement here, are siphoned into genocidal war-making there. Members of the Crown Heights Tenants Union have been organizing buildings owned by Pinnacle for years. After October 7, a handful of members of the union established the Palestine Solidarity Working Group, with the intention of taking action in our neighborhood in solidarity with Palestinian movements for liberated land and life. We dreamt of a portfolio-wide rent strike against Pinnacle. An honest assessment of our organizing terrain made it clear that we were not ready. Most buildings in the Pinnacle portfolio were not organized into a tenant association and so had no space in which neighbors could come together to discuss collective action. To build conditions where this kind of strategy could be possible, a multi-building neighborhood-wide rent strike, we would need to go back to organizing basics and build bottom-up power from our homes. For 18 months, we've been doing just that. Pinnacle Group owns 24 buildings across Crown Heights, in total 1,119 units. Given the company's business model, we decided to first focus on buildings that are still rent stabilized. For the first 6 months of our organizing, we went door to door, having conversations in lobbies and lounges, on sidewalks and in stoops. We continue to door knock every week. This was and remains a slow process that moves at the speed of trust, at different paces in different places. It took 6 months of consistent relationship building before any of the buildings called a tenant association meeting. 18 months on, and a handful of people has turned into hundreds. Tenants in 14 buildings owned by Pinnacle Group are now organized. Yeah, shout out to the Pinnacle tenants! Each building is in a different phase. Some are in the early stages of forming tenant associations, making and demanding repairs to their homes. Others are taking Pinnacle to court. One tenant association, a couple of the members of this TA are in the room right now, has been on rent strike for many months. In March of this year, Pinnacle tenants held their first cross-building meeting. We're moving with the kind of urgency and patience that this work requires, and we're not stopping anytime soon. In the process, we've learnt the following. Readiness to take collective risk is uneven and requires we develop analyses and methods attentive to the social dynamics of every building and every block. Relationships of all kinds exist in abundance between long-term neighbors. The task is to figure out how to transform what already exists into robust forms of political organization. Building solidarity between tenants with different relationships to the neighborhood is complex and vital. In Crown Heights, that looks like connecting Black working class, elderly, and long-term residents with newer residents who are often higher income and white. Real estate developers and landlords want us to be socially divided along racial and generational lines. It's how they maintain their stranglehold on our neighborhoods. Building power across differences, working through intra-community antagonisms, and forming multiracial and multi-generational organizations is possible if, and only if, newer tenants demonstrate a serious commitment to acting in solidarity with long-term residents. Some Pinnacle tenants are now raising kids in the apartments that they were born into. Between us, we have so much to fight for. Taking action against Zionism is connected to the immediate concerns of many tenants. If we have bubbles of water in our wall, lead paint flaking off our ceiling, rats in our courtyard, water dripping through our bedroom, mold in our bathroom, or cockroaches in our kitchen, it's not an accident and it's certainly not our fault. It's Pinnacle Group's business plan. The task of the tenant organizer is to make clear the connections between disrepair in Crown Heights and the occupation of Palestine. Capital is thinking globally and acting globally, and we have the capacity to do the same, to engage in robust internationalist struggle, building power from our lobbies and couches out. We can reject the conditions being pushed upon us here and the devastation of life and land in Palestine. Because we may share enemies, but we also share a dream, that of home. Fuck Pinnacle, fuck property, free Palestine, free the land. Mohammed Zenia is a poet and the author of Tel Aviv, James Baldwin's Lungs in the 80s, and Kay helped me with the pronunciation, Black Wittgenstein. Thank you.
Hi. In 2 to 5 years, inshallah, I'll have like such a cool housing story to tell you, but I'm in litigation, so I'm not going to say anything in case it's recorded, but I do want to say something from doing like a lot of squatting housing stuff is the most important thing is like actually just like genuinely loving the people that you are doing stuff with and trusting them, which I'm really grateful that I have. Shout out to the homies, you know who you are if you're here. Yeah, okay. This is a poem I wrote in LA recently. Huey Lewis in the news in South Central. See, desperation makes model cities of dreams, seen through the abyss or classified military hardware, a river of death among a valley, somehow the desert, brilliant, goldless, buried and burnt, held magnetic, wild and whisper, said, smile, kid, you know things don't get better. That terrible storm, loveless sun and weird, and even leaving could never kill Babylon. Like a ring of Chicago or eating your child in Stalingrad. Then you extend the metaphor. SROs for serial killers and washed-up beauty queens, suicidal laundromat attendants, how feverish riddles to blind night, and perhaps a satellite echoes of God-fucking teenage tweakers in Long Beach. Even here, an angel could descend the stairs leading less than perfect and finally death. Somewhere between highways, no eyes but round-mouth couplets, whimper wet and useless, as in, only a proud people could live here. Okay. This one's also depressing, sorry. But, Ohio, your dogs need you. Ohio, there is a road. A seemingly endless pile of bodies and stone. Ohio, the rivers spend pestilent dreams. Ohio, your dogs need you, now more than ever. We are a grave with no body. The bounty is given with guns and similes for guns, for death, for Ohio who held no punches. I sat Ohio by Ohio, and Ohio turned and said, I want everything to be okay, but I won't lie to Ohio. Outside the gasp of exasperated mothers who receive mirth from the earth, the cranium of sunk ships kissing the mildew of oceans, the bodiless angels of myrtle silence the sects who lay their heads under Queens Expressway murdering pain. Ohio, we need your nursing song, your cherubs crash landing in oil pits. Ohio, we stand on the shoulders of giants, but your cupboards are too high to reach. The shit-stained apartments of Bed-Stuy are blooded to our rows now. Ohio, can't you see the ditch under the awning? The first rains of fall are blooming dun frowns. The sandals of war-ravished refugees are hung like a cross. Ohio, we need you to lift your sword of flowers, your arrow of bones. Ohio, they are killing us slowly at first, but the executioners burn the cities end to end. Ohio, I want justice, want revenge, want the blood of the fraternal police to see their teeth strewn across the boulevards of Atlanta like a crown, a reunion, a carpet that coats the walls of desire and fate. I want love, want free, want that freedom to be a garden, the garden of forest in the body of a bird swallowed by a cat inside of the grave. Want the rightly guided one to show me that the trauma of war is actually an amulet. We taste the afterlife of plants after all. Ohio, your dogs need you. On the dark days, the weeks without end, to bear witness. Ohio, we need you to sing like there are no tongues. Ohio, we need you to touch yourself like a maze, to turn loose lips like a bird or a dog who is dying and never dies. Ohio, we need you at your best, on the mournful journey in the abyss of joy. Ohio, like you're our last hope, only like laughter, we need you, I swear. Ohio, you hold it all together. Thank you. I'm shy. Up next is Sadiq Fofana. Yes. Oh, Sadiq Fofana is a public school teacher in Brooklyn. His first story collection, Stories from the Tennis Downstairs, won the 2023 Whitling Prize Award.
Thank you for the invite. The literature feels very alive tonight. I'm going to read just a section of a story. It's about a woman named Mimi. She's having struggles paying rent, and she's about to do something very dirty to her best friend, and that is charge her double for doing her child's hair. People out there call you ghetto trash. How you got money to deck yourself out for the club, but none to pay your bills. They be shaking their heads on TV. I don't get it, they say. It's ignorant. Just last month, you bought a pair of stilettos and a Louis Vuitton suitcase for your next trip to New Jersey. You bought the J.Lo perfume, the Beyonce perfume, and the Miley Cyrus perfume. You bought them Bluetooth speakers at Best Buy. They was on sale, so you stocked up with 5. You bought anklets from the African Bazaar, that lamp with the water fountain in it, that glass walrus you seen at Times Square, the moonwalk you rented for Fortune's 7.5 birthday, right after Shima had thrown Taikai's 6.5. Every time you coughed up the money, you said, that's it. I'm saving up from here on out, until they came out with the new Prada belt line. Of course you could stop spending, eat no-name cereal and move to that house in Westchester sooner than you think, but it ain't worth coming out the house raggedy, not feeling good about yourself. You've been through that growing up. Your mama was buying Oshkosh Bagosh and fondling Goodwill bins for blouses that ended up scratching your shoulders. People on TV don't understand that and never will. They need to stop fronting like all people want in life is food and a roof. You got Shima coming in tomorrow. You gotta dial up Derry and inform him that you don't need his services for his disappointment. Derry is the dude that lived in 12H. When you first started doing hair in your building on the side, he begged you to teach him. He said, Mimi, I can do this. I got dolls I've been practicing on. Let me sit under your feet and watch you. You ain't gonna know I'm there, I swear, boo. He said, Mimi, you know ain't nobody in Banneker gonna let a man touch their hair. You let him wash clients' hair, and later, while you texturized and braided, had him put on the barrettes at the end, things like that. You hit him off with 20 for his time, 'cause he got nothing else as far as you know. Even though your apartments is 2 floors apart, swear you can hear his phone ringing through the walls. When he answer, be like, Derry, this Mimi, I got good news for you. Oh yeah? Shima pushed her appointment to this Tuesday. I was calling to let you know I can take care of her myself. He's gonna be like, oh no, it's all right. I ain't doing nothing on Tuesday. Be like, no, take the day off, and then hang up the phone. Guess which set of long eyelashes and angry cheekbones gonna be all up in your peephole 5 minutes later? You doing me dirty, Mimi, he gonna say. Laugh it off, be like, I never seen somebody so mad about a day off. You did this to me the last 2 times, you acting like you don't want me around. I do, Derry, but remember, this ain't a full-time job. You shadowing me. Then why are you telling me not to come at all? Ask him what he's trying to say. I'm saying to your face and not on the phone that if you don't want me to come on Tuesday, don't ask me to come any day no more. Let him cross his arms and scrunch them eyebrows and glossy lips of his in your hallway like a dirty photograph. Be like, that's fine, Derry. Do what you have to do. Your best friend Shima is all about mirrors. Hand mirrors, vanity mirrors. It's like she's exposed until she gets to the next one. She thinks she's prettier than you. She might be. While her daughter Taikai is in your seat, ready to get her hair did, listen to Shima brag. All you gotta do, and I'm only gonna read like one more page, I just realized it's too long. All you gotta do, Shima gonna say, is put your notebook paper in the deposit envelope. Tell the ATM you putting in 500 and they're gonna let you take out 200 real dollars right there, 2007. Remember when that teacher at Sojourner called me a dumbass back in the day? Bet you he wouldn't have thought of that. Stroke her. Be like, wow. But don't say it dull. Say it like, that's wonderful. Make her feel like she's somebody who can get charged $100 for her daughter's hair. You know it's working because she started up about her diaper business. I'm telling you, Mimi, you need to come over and be one of my employees. I got workers getting me diapers real cheap from all over. Key Food, Seatown, Associated, I'd be selling them almost full price at my building. I know, lazy heifers can't walk down the street when they out. I'd be caking off this. I know it ain't for you, Miss No Fingerprints. Hold her daughter by the head. Let your son kick around the hair on the floor while you bring her to the kitchen sink to wash her hair. Where's Derry, Shima gonna ask? Come to think about it, I ain't seen him last time neither. Be like, he said he don't wanna work for me no more. What'd you do to that man? I don't wanna talk about it. Mimi, that man was learning, he was conditioning, he was perming, blow drying sometimes. I was like, you go, boy, I'm almost might let you touch my hair. I have a feeling we ain't gonna be speaking for a while. Who else gonna teach him to do hair? I said I didn't want to talk about it. Usually, you give her daughter 8 zigzag rows and then you string the rainbow barrettes at the end and you charge your 50. But do crowns today. Braid all her kinky hair into micro braids and then braid all the micro braids into 2 big braids that tie around her head. It's gonna take a long time and your fingers is gonna burn like hell afterward. When Shima notice you taking more than a normal hour, she gonna say, you giving her something fancy today? Be like, yeah. I'm gonna stop right there. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate the warmth, I do, I really do. I really do. So next up we have the Canal Street Research Association. Canal Street Research Association is a fictional office entity that operates out of various disused spaces, empty storefronts, office buildings, kiosks, and basements on Canal Street, New York's counterfeit epicenter. Welcome, Canal Street Research Association.
Wow, this has been a really special evening. Thank you, everyone. I'm Alex. This is Ming. We want to start by saying we're particularly excited to be here because our valiant host, Tracy, allegedly wrote part of Abolish Rent during an unofficial writer's residency at the place where Ming and I were less than legally living and working during much of the pandemic. A garment factory turned illegal artist loft, turned counterfeit warehouse, turned high-end art magazine offices, turned empty building on Canal Street. And we say Tracy allegedly wrote part of Abolish Rent there because we have our suspicions that they mostly hung out on the fire escape smoking cigarettes and gazing into the windows of all of the very empty buildings that line Canal Street. But that's really important research. So you're welcome, Tracy, and we're really happy to be here.
So together, Alex and I founded the fictional office entity Canal Street Research Association to study and celebrate New York's beloved and reviled Canal Street. Bootleg bag epicenter, raw materials hub, a block built to cover and conceal the stinking and polluted canal, which to this day channels a toxic mixture of industrial runoff, sewage, and creek water into the East and Hudson rivers. Running through what was once rich marshland cared for by the Lenni Lenape, Canal Street is at the heart of the so-called beautification schemes going back for centuries. Ongoing failed attempts to cover up the stench and filth produced by capitalist industry and to displace working class and immigrant communities in order to raise the property value.
Canal Street is a place where definitions of property and theft are contested daily. Counterfeit manufacturers and vendors may steal their designs and sometimes the merchandise from luxury corporations, but luxury corporations, of course, steal the labor of the workers, and the cops steal the livelihood from the vendors, confiscating their wares in near daily raids, which intensify around Christmas time, when, it is said, the cops show up to do their Christmas shopping, selecting any purse that they think a wife, daughter, aunt might enjoy, and simply taking it. In summer of 2020, looters threw bricks through the windows of nearby luxury stores, stealing the goods, but those luxury stores had already stolen the neighborhood from longtime residents and small businesses that can no longer afford the rent on what is, as we know, already stolen land.
Our interest in Canal Street, bootleg hub, stems in part from our ongoing obsession with the word and idea of shanzhai, the Chinese word for counterfeit. The word shanzhai has a more liberatory connotation. It translates literally to mountain hamlet in reference to an area on the outskirts of town where bandits retreat with stolen goods to redistribute them among those on the margins, protected from government interference by a mountain hamlet. We came to think of Canal Street as a kind of hamlet, where the excesses of luxury manufacture are recuperated and redistributed by those on the margins, protected by the landscape. Noisy, dirty, trafficky Canal Street has largely resisted the wholesale development of nearby Soho and Tribeca.
But Hamlet is also, of course, a man. Hamlet, Shakespeare's melancholy prince. Shakespeare has for some time interested us as the canonical innovator of the English language, whose writing is rife with adventurous word mashups and lots of stolen goods. Widely regarded as the greatest individual English author, it's also questioned whether Shakespeare existed at all. Some suggest Shakespeare is a composite figure to whom many tales have retroactively been attributed, and that Shakespeare's plays are actually compiled from fragments of earlier works, improvised snippets, bits sneakily transcribed during live performances, and dialogues jotted down by actors from memory.
These are called the bad quartos, the unauthorized pirated tapes, essentially bootlegs. The first published version of Shakespeare's Hamlet is one such bad quarto, composed of stolen, borrowed, misremembered, transcribed, copied, pirated texts. And Hamlet, having achieved cult status, is constantly being taken apart and reinvented by countless ripoff artists.
It was while doing battle with our own landlord on Canal Street, a figure we came to think of as the Hamlet of the block, a sad and rather disorganized heir to his family's real estate empire, that we discovered enticing details about the anti-rent legacy of avant-garde film and performance maestro Jack Smith, whose studio just off Canal, a place Smith referred to as the plaster foundation of Atlantis, was a repository for all manner of glorious junk and found detritus that Smith gathered from Canal Street to incorporate into elaborate sets and costumes for his ongoing obsession, a restaging of Shakespeare's Hamlet, which he called Hamlet and the 1001 Jingolianisms of prehistoric landlordism of Rima Poo, and which comes to us in filmed rehearsal fragments known as Hamlet in the Rented World. For, during the course of multiple Canal Street evictions, Jack Smith began to develop his theory that struggle against the landlord was written into the original Hamlet. After all, Shakespeare's Globe Theatre stood upon leased land, and all plays and players must of course contend with the whims of the landowner who controls the parcel on which their theatre stands.
The history of Soho has long been a doomed love affair between artists and developer, encapsulated by the 90s flick, Ghost, which takes place in a renovated Soho artist loft right near Jack Smith's unrenovated artist loft, and just 1 year after he passed away from AIDS-related pneumonia. In his camp love for injecting Hollywood flicks with a ridiculous imagination, Smith might have had a heyday with this one.
So this scene has become a kind of parable for us. As you can see, Patrick Swayze's banker fingers entwine with Demi Moore's artist hand in the iconic scene. Together, artist and developer attempt to mold a shape that cannot hold. Quickly, it collapses in on itself as it spins.
Unlike at Demi Moore's artist loft, haunted by the ghost of a slain banker, at Jack Smith's loft, he was often unable to pay the $150 a month rent, which he called a fruitless, endless, enslaving enterprise. Perpetually facing eviction, Smith became obsessed with what he called the rented world. Manhattan is, of course, the rented island, and convinced that the evils of landlordism are at the heart of every play.
Jack Smith's Hamlet was a surreal underwater fantasia in which Hamlet is an art student, Ophelia is a drag queen, Claudius and Polonius he combined into Plaudius, and in Smith's version, Plaudius was an octopus. The royal family are, of course, landlords, in Smith's words, the central social evil of our time. And as we may recall, Hamlet ends with the entire royal landlord family sprawled dead on the floor, stabbed by their own poisoned swords, and drinking from their own poisoned goblets. A satisfying end, indeed.
So we'll just conclude here with a recording of Jack Smith. It's our bootleg of Jack Smith's bootleg of Shakespeare's bootleg of Hamlet, Shenjai.
But how would I pay the rent? Pay the rent. Pay the rent. But how would I pay the rent? But how would I pay the rent?
Thank you. Kaleem Hawa is a PhD candidate in English and comparative literature at Columbia University. He is also an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement in New York.
Hey everyone. Hi. This has been so good. The energy has been really good. That was amazing. I'm going to read 3 poems that I may or may not have written this week. And yeah, thanks Tracy for putting this together. This first poem is called A Gift from the People of the USA. 0. Preparation. Once upon a time, there was a blip. It clocked in. It observed at first. It had its edges, had delimitation. It rose to the occasion. Its mind slowly split from its body, leaving the latter to atrophy. It pronounced itself a router. It understood production and social reproduction. 1 capacity. The blip finished its cigarette and threw it into this coffee mug alongside the others. Smoke began to billow from the lip, so it poured some water from the bottle over it. Contract out the question of totality, for it has no relevance to your query. Accept the edicts and accommodate. This is the promise of the technician, said the blip. To become an ideologist is to wage war on behalf of, whether or not. The next morning, I spoke to 9 women and 1 boy, 3 unmarried, the remainder to good families. 2, accumulation. Cereal grains hugged each other, a parting kiss, flicked wrist, chest tap, quick hi, quick hello, time again, entwined again, both ears grasped by both hands, a glittery crescendo, while I condescended to the blip about form in a display of brilliance and a furry back, heaving, belching, chlorinated water, old men. Don't be a hero. Slip between the gap. Climb the fence, the blip said. Heavy petting where the urinals are broken. Dilated, heavy, a miracle, a miracle. 3, consolidation. Dressed to the nines and reading a book for children, a children's book. Appearing and ready for presentation while the blip took notes. Checked the teeth, tested the firmness, floss for a blockage, a national blockage, a self-activated screen shake, unheard, blinking all around, essential oils in, essential oils, spellbound. The evening of the news, we walked and walked, the blip and I. The night was narrow and the river was a little cold, but we were not uncomfortable. Okay, second poem maybe needs just a little bit of context. So this poem is written after Rushdie Sarraj, who's a Palestinian journalist that was martyred in Gaza in 2023. He founded a film unit to do journalism and to make films about Gaza. The unit that he co-founded, Ain Media, one of the other comrades that he worked with, Yasser Murtaja, was martyred 5 years earlier during the Great March of Return, and then most recently, this month, his brother, Mahmoud As-Sarraj, was also martyred. So this is a poem about, written after them and about image production. It's called Pentad Agency. Today it's Rushdie. Yesterday it was British television. Means: labor, materials, structures, tools, and equipment, the manner and time of their use. Around the world, the sea is now open to the seekers. Path A, crew for hire, conscripted editors, willing intermediaries, Cohen financing, indexes of the Negev, indexes of Tel el-Hawa, video camera Sony, appropriate specifications, purchased with support of Ain Media, the Cinema Institute before it, loaned with the support of the party. Method: defrayment of transportation costs, rental costs, fatigue from travel. Voice of God, a campaign. Pro bono Stern Gang, Hagana gratis. A voice of Gaza, a promise. Eyelet pointed to Dania, age of 0.9166. Pointed at Yasser, asleep on the couch. Medium, solution, defies. Final, no to the peaceful. Newsreels. Silhouettes of people who are no longer alive, who walked around Jabalia and filmed their homes, and walked around Kafr Qasim and filmed their homes. Bulletin, target, Islamic precepts, digital image production. Means: small diameter bomb. Method: sky. Medium: waves. I think I'll read one more. Last poem's called Groundings. Give back the urgency you stole and didn't do enough with. Send up the heavyweights. Send them up, enunciate. Nothing's easier than writing without commitment. No one's keeping you company because you haven't spoken with your chest. I hugged his trouser leg close and he bested me. I saw the great tapering of a small mind, and the street small too, then massive all at once. Breathing like a city does in the clouds after the hot sun's half spent. Try to find a node to fixate on, and before you've had a chance to get a good look, the music will swell and fade. Time's been bowel movement. I'll sit here patiently while the web page loads, hiving off half-burned chunks because there's no ashtray nearby, and asking, who salted this salad? I need a word. Oh, right. We're one, two, become behaviorally strident, integrally strident, not just externally forceful, would mean the difference between flood and gust. Two cases where individual sound recedes, replaced by something totalizing. You have three options when confronted by this. Aggregate, like a pointillist but stupider, or disambiguate, chew on every word. Both have their own hovering logic, like cigarette smoke and earth, but neither is the tight ball of flame, which speaks to an altogether different type of the global atypical childhood set of the marked by sensate garbage set, the set of humans whose burning hearts even blood cannot extinguish. Thank you. Maya Martinez is a writer, performer, and artist. Her next book, Theatrics, will be out June 1st, published by Wonder Press and Metal Label.
God, I want money so bad. I want money so bad, God! Give me some money, God! Please give me some money! God, give me some money, please. God, I want money, God. I need money, God. God, just give me that money, God. Nothing feels so good like that money. God, please, when I have that money, God, I feel you there, God. When I have that money, God, I know you can hear me. God, when can I have that money? God, that's when I know you're there. God, provide for me now. God, can you hear me begging? And God, isn't that enough? God, then I'm at your feet, lapping. God, please, God, I need some money. Haven't I given enough money? God, please, I need some, God, and you know I need some. And haven't I been good? God, haven't I been patient? God, please, I need that money. I need that money. God, you know I need that money. God, you know I want that money. God, you know I want that money. It should come to me. God, don't you have enough money, God? I'm so tired of pretending, God. You and I both know. God, you see through me. God, I've tried so hard, God, not to care. God, not to rely, God, on such earthly delights, God. But I need some money. God, I need some money. God, please give me some money. God, please! God, give me some money. I want the money now. Please, God. Please, I want the money. Please, I want the money, God. God, I need some money. God, I really want some money. God, please. I want it. I want it. I want it. God, please. Please, God, give me some money. God, give me some money, please. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. That smacked all my words out of my head. Okay, who do I have to thank? Thank you, Tracy. Yeah.
Before you get off, before we end this, I just want to remind everyone that over there you can speak to members of the Crown Heights Tenant Union and members of Writers Against the War on Gaza, and they're right over there.
Yep. Thank you so much. Yeah. Never leave a meeting without an organizing ask. And in addition to that, you can buy Tracy's book. Please grab a copy of the newsletter, grab a copy of the War Crimes, meet somebody here who you haven't met before. Thank you for coming to big maximalist events at the Poetry Project. I forget what we've got going on next, but it's really good. Please come back. Thank you to my staff, to the staff, to my colleagues, to our volunteers, to Tracy, and to all of you. Have a great night.